Do you feel like you need God's encouragement and wisdom throughout the week to take hold of His promise to fly like an eagle? You've come to the right place. Welcome to Eagles on the Hill. Let's join our host, Pastor Jeff Scheich.
All right, people, I am your host, Pastor Jeff Scheich. So thanks for joining us on this edition of Eagles on the Hill. We want to encourage you to subscribe on our YouTube channel. Just go to search for Eagles on the Hill and hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. Or you can follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Just follow us as we together follow Jesus and draw strength from Him to fly like an eagle. Today, we have what I consider to be a very important topic, and that is school choice in Nebraska. It is something that's been talked about in the news for, well, almost ever since I've been here, 23 years. And now this past year, a bill was passed, and I want to get us the latest information on this. And I thought the best person to do this for us is Mark LaRue, our Executive Director of Schools and Facilities at Christ Lincoln. So, Mark, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so we're going to count on you to be the expert. So here you go. Your pressure's on. All right. So school choice in Nebraska. Last year, in the last session of the legislature, I believe a bill was passed. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So LB 753 was passed from the legislation to support scholarships for eligible families. Talk a little bit more about that, but basically what it does is for families that qualify from an income standpoint, the state would fund through tax credits these families to attend the school of their choice. So whether it be a private school, a homeschool setting, different types of school settings, even a public school setting, that is a school choice option. It would allow them to do that in removing that income barrier guideline.
So in practical purposes, does this work where, let's say I decide I want to help kids do this, so I donate $1,000 to some fund somewhere, and then I get a tax credit of $1,000, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. It can be individual or business corporate level gifts that you would be able to give and then receive a tax credit from your income taxes. And then those dollars are pooled together and go into what is called an SGO, a scholarship granting organization.
Okay.
And schools that are a part of these SGOs would receive money based on the applications from families that are applying to receive that type of scholarship.
Okay. So if I don't, so it's possible that a lot of people would not qualify for these because of income, if they have enough income, but others in certain income statuses would be able to apply. What if, let's say, going to Christ Lincoln schools, if a child is already going there, but they would qualify, could they then apply and get funds? And the funds would go to them or the school? How does that work?
So the scholarship follows the student,
Okay.
right? And so it would ultimately go to the school for the family to be able to pay for that education.
Okay.
So go back to the first question that you had asked.
But it's not just new students. It can be, or
Correct.
Is it just new students?
Yeah, the way the bill is written, and each bill can be different based on how they feel they can pass through the legislation. So this bill is written that they have entry levels. So these could be students entering into kindergarten or into ninth grade. So typically, kindergarten is going to be the first year experience for a student. Ninth grade would be the first year experience for a high school student. So those are the two entry levels because they don't want to bog up the system with students that are already attending non-public schools that would qualify from their income. We would blow out the cap that
Gotcha.
has been set. So two entry levels, kindergarten and ninth grade. And then they also have a portion in the bill that talks about students that have been bullied. So students that have been bullied, and there's documentation of that, would be allowed to obtain one of these scholarships. And then also military families. Military families are oftentimes on the move.
Sure.
And so they're not in a set place for a short period of time.
Gotcha. And this goes into effect January 1st, as I understand it, of like coming up here in a few months.
Yep.
Goes into
Governor
effect.
Pillen signed this into law about a month ago, and
Okay.
will go into effect January 1.
Okay. So now how does Nebraska compare? Do other states have this kind of school choice stuff, or how does that?
Yeah. So interesting is that Nebraska is the last state to implement any type of school choice for families.
Oh my
We,
goodness.
we were kind of neck and neck with North
Jeez.
Dakota. And North Dakota, just about a couple of months before us, before we passed ours, they were able to pass one. So Nebraska
Whoa.
is the last state to implement one.
Whoa.
All of the other states across the union have similar scholarship opportunities. Some look like tax credits, like what we're trying to pass here in Nebraska.
Uh-huh.
Other states like Wisconsin or Florida have vouchers. So there's a dollar amount that follows the student.
Hmm.
Interestingly enough, Iowa, our neighbor to the east,
Right.
they recently had tax credits, a similar program in which Nebraska passed. This past year, their governor passed what's called an ESA, and it's an educational savings account.
Mm-hmm.
This dollar amount, over $7,000, will follow a student. In 3 years, there will be no income barriers or guidelines.
Hmm.
Every student in Iowa will receive over $7,000 for attending a non-public school.
Wow.
So
Wow.
take
Wow.
this into relationship with what we charge here at Christ Lincoln Schools. So we charge a community member just a little over $5,000,
Hmm.
right? It probably costs us around $6,500 to educate that child.
Mm-hmm.
We're knocking off about $1,000 off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we can qualify or quantify, I should say, our tuition in a educational savings account and get $7,000 for that child, and the parent doesn't have to pay a single penny,
Oh,
we win.
you better start building, boy.
We win. We better start building, right?
Wow. So why has school choice been so hard to pass in Nebraska? What's
Yes,
the deal with us here? What's wrong with us?
It has been difficult. There's two main reasons for this, and Governor Ricketts at the time kind of outlined these two reasons. First and foremost, Nebraska has a unicameral, right? So we have a single legislative body. We don't have a House and a Senate. We have one, and so it makes it difficult for topics like this to be debated in an equitable format, right? So that's kind of the first one. So the opposite positions don't oftentimes get expressed in a unicameral. The second one, which is the second reason, which is probably the most the biggest factor, is that Nebraska has a strong public school union. And so just to understand the strength of that union, in this repeal that we'll talk about here in a little bit, they supported it with over $2 million to basically say, we want people to support our schools, right? Supporting our schools is a public school initiative.
So let's get into that. So that
$2 million.
repeal effort is called Support Our Schools.
Yep.
And so what you're saying, and this is news to me, is that the public school teachers unions put up $2 million to get this going.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
So you would have seen them at the College World Series, right? There would have been people standing outside the gates asking people to sign this. I went to Pinewood Bowl for a concert this summer. There were people outside Pinewood Bowl asking people to sign this initiative to support our schools, which is to support public schools and not allow school choice in Nebraska.
Wow. Wow. So Mark, you're in your family, my family as well. We have people that have worked in the public school. You've gone to public school. I've gone to public school. And we've gone to Lutheran schools as well, so, but just to put that out there, you and I are both products of Lutheran and public schools.
Yep.
Our family members have worked in public schools. Even in my case, they still do. So why is there this effort to repeal this? How does it, well, I guess, does it harm our public schools to have this kind of school choice?
Yeah,
What's your opinion on that?
I would say, Jeff, that that's probably the most asked question when we talk about school choice.
Mhm.
Is the question or the thought is that this takes away monies from our public school,
Mhm.
and actually it doesn't. Students that attend the public school will continue to receive those dollars,
Mhm.
right? But families who choose to send to a non-public school through a tax credit scholarship,
Mhm.
those dollars follow the student. So it's not dollars that we're taking away from the public school. Now,
Mhm.
the public school is not receiving that student,
Mhm.
but they're still receiving the dollars of the students that are attending a public school.
Mhm.
Um, think of it this way. As I mentioned, it costs about, let's say, $6,500 in actual cost to educate a child at Christ Lincoln schools. It
Mhm.
might be greater, it might be a little less in other non-public schools.
Mhm.
In the public school, the average 3 years ago was over $13,000 a student,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? So the public school is giving each student that goes into their classrooms, into their programs, $13,000.
Mhm.
Non-public schools can oftentimes do it for much, much less. So think
Mhm.
about the dollars that it's saving the state.
Mhm.
It's guessed or estimated between states that operate a tax credit scholarship program anywhere from 13 million to 120 million dollars in savings to the state.
Mhm.
So public schools still get their money,
Mhm.
but non-public schools can do it for a fraction of the less.
Mhm. And of course, part of the reason that it costs, am I right in this, that it costs public school more than, let's say, Christ Lincoln schools, is that public schools are required to provide programming for anyone and everyone. So I know, like some kids in public school, for instance, have a tutor or whatever that's called, with them throughout the day, one on one. That kind of that's a heavy, high expense. But that doesn't account for all of it. When you look at the facilities that Christ Lincoln Schools has, they're good. And then you go into, Southwest High School and go, whoa, or,
Yeah.
go into, public schools have a lot more. They can just raise tax dollars and there you go. Right.
And that's
And,
it. I mean,
and that hits us. Our tax dollars are pretty high here.
well, take a look at your property tax on an annual
Sure.
basis, right? If you look at that line item by line item, you will see one there for living here in Lincoln,
Right.
one for Lincoln Public Schools, and that
Mhm.
is 50% of your property taxes.
Right.
So I look at the neighborhood around me, and I'm counting all of the houses that have just been built, and I'm
Mhm.
going, well, there's $3,000 there, there's $3,000 there. And
Mhm.
so it is a lot, and I think that's something that Nebraska needs to address at a separate time is property taxes.
Right. That's a whole nother video.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, we've barely scratched the surface of this here, and I think now this repeal effort is going to be on the ballot, as I understand it, at the end of 2024. So we're in September of 2023, almost into October, and so we got another year of discussion on this before it actually hits the us as voters, November of 2024, presidential election day, I presume.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a topic that we're going to hear more about. I would like to have you back on the podcast because we're going to get questions from this, and we got a year to kind of process this together before we have to go into the ballot box. So would you do that? Come back on again?
Jeff, I would love to. This is something that I'm passionate about, and something that it's not just Lutheran schools working towards.
Uh-huh.
We are in great partnership with Catholic schools, with other non-public schools to say, hey, this is important for all of our families to allow giving the parents the choice of
Mhm.
where they would like their children to go to school, removing the income barriers.
Good, good. Well, thanks for being with us, Mark. I really appreciate it. We're going to have to end out today, so we'll say goodbye. Thanks for being here.
Great. Thank
All right. Well, that's it. What a topic today. We expect to get some questions from you on this, which we'll put to Mark next time we're together. Write us, email us at eaglesonthehill211@gmail.com. That's all one word, no spaces, dots, dashes, underscores, just eaglesonthehill211@gmail.com. Give us some tough questions for Mark, and we'll have him back on again. Let us know some other topics, even controversial ones that you'd like us to talk about, and we'll get those on the show. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Remember, as we always do as we close, that those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength and fly on wings like eagles. We trust in that promise of God who is always faithful. Thanks for listening today.